afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Lehr. Yes, indeed, Lehr. My sincerest apologies for the great delay there between episodes, but I basically sort of hit a bit of a mental stumbling block, sort of having mostly gone through the units, sort of unsure, where to go next, how to sort of proceed with this. And yeah, in the sort of, figure, let's try our best with something else, abilities, sort of tactics, basics, about sort of something a bit more broader, something more sort of less unit specific. As a sort of, changing things, further explaining and hopefully educating people as to matters. In this case, I'm going with the Hulldown ability, a very rarely used ability. In this case, I was presented with the opportunity to sort of explain, and basically what Hulldown does is it increases a lot of the stats of a unit, basically. Range, it can increase line of sight, accuracy, rate of fire, penetration, no, not penetration, but armor goes up basically as well, making it harder to penetrate. And it also takes less damage, I believe, as well. So in that regard, it does quite a bit there for the tank, actually. That's not to say it is fully perfect or without its flaws. When it doesn't, for example, make the unit super power, of course, as you might have noticed, it does make it immobile. Which, of course, means you can't move it. You do suffer higher risk of being flanked, and, of course, you can quickly then basically sort of release yourself from the hull down, which, sort of quickly gets you out of it, but that's about it, really. Still, sort of get all the bonuses, you need to be static, so that's one little important detail there already. And that does mean it does become a bit more of a fixed target. For example, in that regard, it will suffer a bit of a disadvantage. In fact, one of the greater counters is basically an anti-tank gun. Move it up, fire at maximum range, your hull down tank is not real much use, which does mean you have to be a bit more considerate of how you position your hull down tank. You generally then want to ensure it's in a way that your opponent's anti-tank guns can't just sort of get up far at it from their own maximum range. You want to force them to get within range. Now, of course, one thing to note, that depending on the unit, they might actually be able to fire back, but those units might then not necessarily be able to do much. For example, the Panther, with the range bonus from hull down, can actually respond to an anti-tank gun or a tank destroyer. In fact, it can even shoot a bit farther. Same applies to the Stu G, but generally, when it comes to going hull down, units that have a turret generally benefit from it more overall. An assault gun or a tank destroyer, like say the Elephant tank destroyer, which we've got here, by the way, benefit from it a lot less, since they only have already a very narrow arc of fire. So, you got to be pretty damn sure the opponent's only coming from that specific angle. So in that regard, using it on non-turreted vehicles is generally not very effective. It's generally stuff here, like for example, Panther 4 command tank, that will benefit from it. So that is very much important to keep in mind there when utilizing hull down, sort of thinking about what you want to do with hull down. But again, consider the terrain. For example here, in that regard, it's not necessarily too bad, but, at the same time it can be dealt with from here, and also a bit from here, firing through the hedgerows with attack rounds. In that regard, it's a bit trickier. It's not quite so easy to sort of find a position here in general. On this map, hull down might not necessarily be the fully most effective. Then again, you can sort of get something else, maybe then deal with the anti-tank guns, maybe a mortar. There might actually be a chance of sort of working out. But very much, when you do go hull down, things like this should be very much a primary consideration. And that is also to a certain extent what does make hull down a bit more tricky to use, because it's a relatively easy counter on certain units. For example, again, Panther 4s, for example, can be easily counter that. Panthers as well, though again the Panther will be a lot trickier to deal with for an anti-tank or even tank destroyer, and certainly a tank destroyer like the SUD-5 or the Jackson, while able to fight the full range, of course, will still get shot back at, and they will certainly suffer more damage than the Panther will suffer, and certainly the Panther will also be able to shrug off a lot of the damage. So in that regard, it's sort of more of, what's the situation and what can I sort of get out. For example, if we were to consider maybe more around here, maybe, that'd be certainly a lot less angled, but again, that'd be here, and it might, maybe a bit here as well. Again, that's the problem with it, and that's basically the trick of hull down. You want to sort of somehow lure them in within range of it. You want to force them towards it in a certain manner. And in that regard, that is probably also the truth of it. You can't really rely on Hulldown to be the front of your defences. I mean, if you were to sort of imagine it, you want a screen in front of it, and then you want the Hulldown tank covering it, if possible. In that way, the Hulldown vehicle would then sort of serve as a nice cover unit for the frontline infantry, for example, and that might overall work out a bit better tactically for Hulldown vehicles, if you will. So there's a little something there. So of course, also note, basically any unit like Grenadiers or Pioneers or Panzergrenadiers can make your vehicles go Hulldown. So in that regard, it's not something, and again, there we note again, Elephant, for example, Hulldown, but again, note, it has an extremely limited up of fire. I mean, if the opponent attacks from here or here, the Elephant can't do anything. So in that regard, you know, it's a bit more of a gambit when you do that to sort of get anything out of it. Of course, if it does attack head-on, there's definitely an advantage to be gained from it. I mean, that is also very much something to consider when sending vehicles down, Hulldown. It's also pretty much only armor. You can't set, for example, a heart attack or a scout car Hulldown. That's not going to happen. And again, note, instantaneous release. So, for example, it's not like, for example, we'll be suffering any sort of penalty while trying to get away. So it's very much important there to keep mindful of Hulldown. But again, it can give you a certain advantage here and there. But again, you want to somehow try and negate any sort of longer range units by setting up in a manner that makes it very difficult for the opponent to just sort of drive up to it and begin shooting at it. Stuff that can more directly block shots, for example buildings, are probably one of your better bets, for example. Or somehow again laying out an infantry in front of it that also makes it very difficult to just approach that way. And overall, units that probably benefit from the most are things like the Panther, maybe the Panther 4 bit, and the command tank. Ostwind, yeah, probably not so much at all. So it's a bit more of a trickier ability to sort of get any proper usage out of it, and it's overall why you see it so rarely used, because again, while it provides a lot of bonuses, it's so easily negated if your opponent knows what he's doing. And again, it's just moving out an anti-tank. Again, they can withstand shots, so in theory your trick is to basically, if you do it, ensure you've got something that can deal with whatever is attacking it. Anti-tank if it's a tank destroyer, or mortars if it's sort of anti-tank guns that are moving up. That would be overall the best suggestion in that direction. But again, if you can draw your opponent into a hold-down vehicle, of course you will have some advantages there in terms of, well, a lot more firepower out of your tank, and of course a lot more durability. So in theory, it is worth it. The trick is to get it there, and it's certainly something that will require a bit more work to sort of get properly going. So that is very much something to keep in mind and remember if you want to get the full utility out of Hulldown. And I think that sort of largely covers it from Hulldown. Again, it's not something I'm going to expect everyone to use, but hopefully if you've been thinking about using Hulldown, hopefully this video might give you a few ideas to sort of get the most out of it, and might even just inspire you to use it in the first place at all. I mean, it might be nice to see someone sort of make some use of it, but again, it is a tricky ability, and it's certainly one that, while it can give you a lot of sort of, goods for it, it's also one that's, well, easily negated, and that's basically the biggest problem for it. It's so easily negated, but on the other hand, it is an ability that costs you pretty much nothing to use, and again, you can quickly escape from it. So in theory, there's no harm in actually trying to sort of use it here and there to sort of get something going. As a slight heads up to those there. So hopefully you've enjoyed this first Propagandacast Lehr of the year 2015, and I'll get a lot more out of them hopefully this year. Hopefully something a bit more advanced. I'm certainly planning something a bit more on sort of basic armor tactics, for example, and of course also more propaganda fields. So hopefully this is all enlightening you and giving you some better ideas for your own future games. And if you did, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, of course, and, provide comments, feedback, maybe what you'd like to see. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and see you another time. Bye.